In 1970, Bell Labs engineer Amos Joel came up with an idea that worked so well that we use it today without giving it a second thought. Cell phones were in use before 1970, but among other problems, a user could not leave the base cellular area without the call being lost. Joel's system divided geographic areas into cells. A microprocessor could identify the phone and switch the connection as a user traveled from cell to cell. In 1967, IBM was looking for a better way to send software to its customers. Their mainframe computers booted up from big, heavy magnetic tapes, which were slow and expensive to ship. Engineer David L. Noble proposed a new system based on a flexible disk made of magnetic material. IBM released an 8-inch disk made from flexible plastic in 1971. A few years later, the disk size shrank to 5¼ inches and finally to 3½ inches, as seen here. Billions of floppy disks were manufactured, and the 3½ inch disks are still being used today. In 1969, computer programmer Ray Tomlinson implemented the first email system capable of sending messages to users on different host systems. Previously, mail could be sent only to others who used the same computer. To achieve this, he used the @ sign to separate the username from the name of their machine. The Internet Hall of Fame said, "Tomlinson's email program brought about a complete revolution, fundamentally changing the way people communicate." In 1971, Xerox engineer Gary Starkweather constructed the first working laser printer system. A laser would apply a negatively charged pattern to a revolving printer drum. These negatively charged areas would then attract positively charged printer toner to the paper. The paper was then zapped to neutralize its charge before being ejected from the printer. Since his work on the laser printer, Starkweather has won an Academy Award for his work with Pixar on film input scanning. The food processor was the brainchild of a salesman, not an engineer or a scientist. In 1971, French catering services salesman Pierre Verdun saw a need. His clients were spending an excessive amount of time chopping, slicing, and grating food in their kitchens, so Verdun built a prototype with a simple design. It had a large plastic bowl with a fixed revolving blade attached to a shaft in the base. You added food through a tube in the cover. Verdun later designed a handheld version which became extremely popular. The first space station, Salyut 1, was launched by the USSR on April 14, 1971. The three-man crew that first occupied the Salyut was there for only 24 days. Sadly, they died when their capsule depressurized while returning to Earth. Later generations of Soviet space stations, such as Mir, had 2 docking ports and water regeneration facilities. They were designed to remain in space permanently. The first U.S. space station, Skylab, was 3 times the size of Mir and was launched in 1973. The development of computed tomography, or CT scan, also known as a CAT scan, revolutionized medical imaging. In the early 1970s, Godfrey Hounsfield, a British engineer, and Alan Cormack, a South African-American physicist, independently developed the technology that would enable detailed cross-sectional images of the body's internal structures. The first clinical CT scan was performed in 1971 at Atkinson Morley Hospital in London, capturing detailed images of a patient's brain. In the 1960s, inventor Douglas Engelbart invented the computer mouse, which represented a milestone in computer interaction. In 1971, Dr. Samuel C. Hurst invented the electronic touchscreen interface. It was an input tablet that could measure where the user was pressing a stylus. Hurst formed the Ella Graphics Company to make and sell the device. In 1977, the company came up with a resistive touchscreen that worked with a simple finger touch. When U.S. engineer Nathaniel Wyeth asked a colleague if plastic could be used to store carbonated beverages, he was told that they would explode. Early experiments proved the plastic to be too weak, but it could be strengthened if the long strands of molecules that formed plastic were woven together. In 1973, after thousands of failed attempts, Wyeth found that polyethylene plastic had superior elastic properties. This material guaranteed a transparent, recyclable plastic bottle. In 1968, Indian physicist Mani Lal Bhaumik developed an excimer laser. It creates new molecules when xenon, argon, or krypton gases are excited. In 1973, Bhaumik told the world of the new technique at a meeting of the Denver Optical Society of America and later went on to patent it. By 1999, LASIK had received approval for widespread use and remains the most common laser eye surgery procedure today. If you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you want to see more videos like this. Before joining Kodak, electrical engineering student Steve Sasson thought it was possible to make a camera using solid-state electronics. By December 1975, he had a prototype ready for testing. It weighed 8 pounds and was the size of a toaster. Sasson convinced a lab assistant to pose for a test shot. It took 23 seconds to record the image on a cassette, and another 23 seconds to be read from the tape and displayed on a screen. In 1972, U.S. inventor Seymour Cray revolutionized computer design. He set up the Cray Research Company to concentrate on building a powerful computer. The Cray 1 was the first major commercial success in supercomputing. It was essentially a giant microprocessor capable of completing 133 million operations per second. The Cray 2, introduced in 1985, was 6 to 12 times faster, with 10 times the memory. Cray's supercomputers have been used to predict weather, design airplanes, and explore for oil. In 1978, Rob Barnaby of Microprocessor International created the first commercially successful word processing program, WordStar. Unlike most early computer software, the word processor was created to satisfy the needs of writers, not mathematicians or engineers. WordStar was feature-rich and easy to use. It fought off all emerging competition on the market to become the most popular word processing software in the world. There are many contenders for the title of first-ever personal computer, but in 1973, Xerox PARC made the first personal computer as we recognize it today. It was called the Alto, named after the California Palo Alto Research Center. It was designed primarily for research and had to be compact enough to fit in an office. The Alto was powerful enough to support a user interface while being able to share information between machines. In 1965, engineers at Texas Instruments set to work shrinking calculators using integrated circuit technology that had been invented in-house. By 1967, they had a battery-powered prototype capable of 4 simple arithmetic functions on 6-digit numbers. It was the size of a paperback book and weighed nearly 3 pounds. In late 1970, Japan's Busicom introduced the first pocket-sized calculator. It was the first to use an LED display and the first with an integrated circuit designed specifically for calculators. In 1970, the Hamilton Watch Company's Pulsar was the first wrist-worn digital timepiece. Hamilton claimed that their inspiration for the watch was the futuristic digital clock they created for the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. At $2,100, the Pulsar was too expensive for most people. In 1975, Texas Instruments developed a plastic-strapped version for $20 and later dropped the price to $10. In the early 1970s, engineers at Intel, led by Federico Fagan, Marcian Hoff, and Stanley Mazur, developed the first commercially available microprocessor, the Intel 4004. The 4004, initially designed for a Japanese calculator, was a 4-bit central processing unit on a single chip, capable of performing basic arithmetic and logical operations. By the mid-1970s, microprocessors had become the heart of personal computers, powering a new era of digital innovation. The roots of magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, date back to the 1930s and 1940s, with advancements in understanding nuclear magnetic resonance. While training as a doctor in New York, Raymond Vahandamadian successfully imaged a tumor in a mouse and conducted the first MRI body scan of a human in 1977. The first commercial MRI machines became available in the 1980s, and since then, MRI has become a cornerstone in medical diagnostics, offering detailed images of the body's internal structures. Computer-aided manufacturing, or CAM processes, began development in the 1950s and were in use by the 1970s. French engineer Pierre Bézier first developed a program called Unisurf in 1968. It was designed to assist with car body design and tooling. One of the car parts developed with the assistance of Unisurf was the body of the Peugeot 204. By 1999, 1,500 Renault employees were using this technology for car design and manufacture. Many people might imagine that the iconic Sony Walkman, introduced in 1979, was the original personal cassette player. German-born TV executive Andreas Pavel filed patents for a very similar device 2 years earlier in 1977, but failed to secure financial backing for his idea. After the Sony Walkman launched, to immediate acclaim, Pavel set out on a legal battle that took most of the next 25 years. It was settled in 2003, when Sony is believed to have paid Pavel more than $10 million.